looking good Italian job.
Man, it's been a while. Feeling good. How are you, TV?
I'm doing great, my friend. It has been a minute. I don't even want to count how many minutes it's been, but it's been several. And yet, every time we get back together, it's like we just left off.
Yep. You and I had a conversation just, yesterday or the day before, just catching up on life. And you've heard some things, and I've heard some things where guys are like, "Where have you been, man? What's going on?" And so today is 100% off the cuff, no notes. Let's just talk. Shoot it from the hip. Which, let's be honest, those tend to be our best ones. You know, where it's just like, "Hey, here's life. What's going on in my world, and what's going on in your world, and things we're hearing about stuff going on nationwide." But we are getting back into the rhythm with some guests that are lined up. One of them, which I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like it's probably the biggest guest that we've ever had to date.
It's up there with the Savannah Bananas, right?
Yes,
for sure.
Yes. It's big time, and we'll share more about it at a later date. But TB, what's been going on in your world, brother?
I think I can speak for the entire F3 Nation when I say Iron Packs Challenge has been going on in my life and is now over.
You don't look injured, so you must have gotten through this one unscathed.
Well, it's because you can't see from the waist down where I'm fully in a bodysuit cast. But I did great up until, I will tell you, full transparency, week 0, I pushed as hard as I could. It would have been the first time I would have spilled Merlot. I thought I was going to puke, but made it through. And then really enjoyed, I think it was week 2, or maybe it was 3, whichever one where you had to run the 800. And then it was either 2 or 3. Anyway,
I think it was 3.
Yeah, I made it all the way to week 4 and blew my back out doing burpees. And so it was good times.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like good times.
Awesome.
But you've also had some big stuff going down in your home region just last weekend. Let's talk about that. What happened in Greensboro?
Yeah, we surpassed the 10-year anniversary milestone. So we all gathered on Peacehaven Farms land in Whitsett, had an 89-acre beatdown, did a huge service project, dropped about an acre of trees to get ready for expanding our agricultural footprint, which is very exciting, and then gathered up for a huge bonfire, which I believe is now on the Twitter sphere out there. If anybody follows that F3 Nation, they can check it out on that tag. But yeah, it was incredible, man. The highlight being that during COT for 10 years, we rallied all the guys who are either living with an intellectual or developmental disability, or are a caretaker or family member of, and again, on behalf of 10 years and in honor of those fellas, made a $10,000 donation to Peacehaven Farm. So it was, it was outrageous, man.
Some of our guys don't know Peacehaven Farms. This is where you work, but tell the guys who are maybe new listeners or just don't know, what is the goal, the mantra, what is the mission, what is Peacehaven Farms, and who do they serve?
Yeah, well, the mission of Peacehaven is to connect people of all abilities through shared living, learning, work, and play. And for a long time, we've operated on 8 acres of our land so that we could fail forward, fail fast, fail often, most importantly, fail on a small scale, because we're serving 5 families right now. But if you were to draw a 50-mile radius around Whitsett in North Carolina, we have the capacity to serve 350,000 people.
Wow.
These are families what we're solving for, IJ, is we're solving for isolation. When an individual hits 22 years old, all these state programs and funding and education cease to be. Mm-hmm. And so you've got folks that are returning home where it's safe and sound, and going into the outside world often isn't really anybody's bucket list item at that point, because it's, they want to live that life, but it's hard to control the unknowns. And so we're building a place where, again, people of all abilities can intersect and help each other out, find purpose and discover potential and their full capacity. So it's pretty awesome. We're in a capital campaign right now, raising $12 million to build a state-of-the-art community center, which will be 24,000 square feet of everything from occupational therapy, traditional gym, performing arts center, recording studio, event banquet hall. And so you think about people who want to have a job, 80% of this population don't get hired. Mm-hmm. And so that's the status quo that we're really trying to disrupt, let alone the fact that It's not that I went to this restaurant where they hire the IDD community. I had a great cup of coffee and a delicious sandwich that was, produced on this farm. And it just so happens that there's some folks that live there that take care of us every time that we're there. And you should come with me. So
Awesome.
it's been really exciting. It's very much, as I described to the men this weekend, this farm feels like our credo incarnate. It's very much no one left behind, no one left where we found them.
I love it. I love it. I think a lot of folks, I have a lot of folks who are not aware of the work that you guys do. People look at folks with disabilities and they don't know anything and they don't know much about. But these guys and gals are they're the most jovial spirits that I've ever encountered. It's the true hands and feet. I mean, this is how love should be. The love that is shared on these types of farms and these workplaces and in these communities. It's an abounding love with no caveats, with no strings attached. Just, I love you. That's it. I mean, it's kind of, like you said, it's leave no man behind, leave no man where you found him. But it's also what we like to say, you got to have love in everything that you do. Mission first, people always. Love on everybody. So it's awesome, dude. Keep talking, man. I want to hear more.
No, it's been a great opportunity to really understand. For example, we have two members who are core members who are nonverbal, and to understand how to optimize my own ways of communicating by being patient and in the moment with them says a lot. And just that then compounds into how you interact with people everywhere. Not trying to wait for a break in somebody else's story so I can add to it, but make it more about me, right? Mm-hmm. And just being patient on how people communicate has gone a long way. But then understanding too that you're not just serving the individual, you're serving their family. And mom and dad want to be able to put an adult child into a day program just as much as they deserve to have some respite away from the grind. And the families tend to call that age of 22 the cliff. There is federal funding out there. It's called the Innovations Waiver that a lot of people don't even know that it exists. But the waiting list is 18,000 people long in North Carolina alone.
Wow.
I mean, the money's there. It's just the process is so convoluted. So a lot like we say in F3, more rules tend to break relationships. Well, that's a good way to do it, is put policies in the way of everything. And so we're trying to help navigate those waters for people too, very much 43 feet ahead, lighting the lights and making sure that everybody can find their way towards that funding. But then also has the place that they can literally call home. Or just come on vacation and visit and enjoy a day program or host a wedding. So everything in between. It's kind of cool to be able to disrupt community building that way.
So we don't talk about it much. You and I don't tend to tag things that are personal, near and dear to us. However, there's somebody listening today who wants to know, how do I find out more? What's the website to send guys to? And if they want to hear more about it or be a part of it in any way.
Yeah. Great question, sir. Appreciate you asking. It's our website's the best way to communicate, but it's peacehavenfarm.org. And I'll be the one that replies to any of those inquiries. We love hosting guests. We just had, like I said, 100 guys out here at a service project with F3, and we do those things often. It's something cool about digging in the dirt in between, somebody who could be a billionaire and somebody who's living with an intellectual or developmental disability, and you're both working to harvest something that'll nourish everybody.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
You mentioned something earlier that kind of ties into some other stuff that's been going on lately, and it's how rules tend to slow things down, the red tape, the bureaucracy, things just don't get done. You and I both have been impacted by the hurricane relief efforts in Western North Carolina. You having a family that lives up there, me having friends and where I went to school, where I went to college. And one of the things that we've noticed is when a call to action came out for, we need water, we need food, we need fuel, we need diapers, and you name it. The F3 men were the first ones to mobilize with pickup trucks full, and they just went. I know many men who just, rather than waiting for permission and someone to organize, they went and bought things that were needed, loaded up their trucks, drove into the communities. I know some guys personally who are working with Crisis Relief International, and they have a mobile kitchen serving about 5,000 meals every single day, and that's been going on now for more than a dozen days.
Yeah.
But the fact that men were just doing what they were doing, what they've been taught to do, which is free to lead. I don't have to ask for permission. I'm not going to go through and register with a certain organization. I'm just going to go where the needs are. We're talking
Yeah.
the mountains of North Carolina and eastern Tennessee were hit hard. Flooded communities where entire communities were wiped off the map. I know for a fact Slaughter, a good friend of yours and mine, he was leading efforts in the Boone, North Carolina area. I know that F3 Asheville, F3 Waynesville, these areas were hit hard, but the communities, the F3 community worldwide has rallied support and
Yeah.
mobilized efforts, and it continues. Again, 2 weeks post storm, the guys are still at it, still doing it. So that's kind of that free to lead that we talk about. The guys just did, and we've said it before on previous hurricane relief efforts. The Red Cross asked F3, "How in the world are you doing so much without
Yeah.
having an organization?" And it was because we don't have the rules that stifle us. We just said it needed to be done, so we just made it so. So I mean that's impactful, and right now, I mean as we record, the next hurricane
Yeah.
is just now working its way through Florida. And so I would imagine we're going to see the same type of relief efforts going down south to help our brothers down in Lakeland and down towards the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comms coming out of like Suncoast and the like. A former F3 Greensboro guy lives down that way now too, and Picasso. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of good comms ahead of things. I'll tell you, and this is very much shining a light on myself or looking at myself in the mirror. The beauty too of these dark times is how humanity shines above it all.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of jabberjaws online spewing false information, this, that, and the other. We're in an election year. We're just a few, less than a month away, right? So temperatures and opinions are higher than ever. And you're right to look there and see guys either leading a charge or connecting with somebody who's already set up a base camp, for example,
Yeah.
and getting supplies to them to take further up the hill is great. I mean, I talked about looking myself in the mirror. I do not agree with the politics of Samaritan's Purse, but they are so ready to rock and roll when it comes to what you need to do to mobilize and provide materials, supplies, anything you can think of up to those communities in need. And so it's like, all right, I can put my ego on the shelf for a minute, right? And go and load up as many trucks and planes as they have available and Chinooks and get things up the hill. And it's not about us. It's about the folks, it's about the greater we. And that's always, you hate to go through an experience to have that revelation. But when you do, this is what we talk about when we talk about virtuous leadership is you got to be able to set everything aside and be endeavoring to be a good enough dude so that when you cry out for help or when you cry out to lead a charge, that you'll have enough helping hands to pull alongside of you. That's the whole when we talk about VAPE, right? That's that exhortation. It's like, I hear the cry and I'm going to go help out.
Yeah, the stories that I've heard personally, where people have reached out and told me directly, I just want you to know how much this means to our community, that we were not forgotten, that a stranger who doesn't even know us is willing to do this for us. A friend of mine has a hardware store in Western North Carolina in a town called Sunny View, North Carolina, not on a map. It's a crossroads.
Yeah.
And when the storm hit, they are 4 miles out away from Chimney Rock, North Carolina, or what's left of Chimney Rock, North Carolina. If you've seen any pictures, it was leveled by floodwaters. And their community really rallied around his shop because they had a generator and they had Wi-Fi. So people were coming there and calling. He was telling me people were calling, their moms. Hey, Mom, I'm okay. There's a place, I'm safe. I'm okay. But the feedback that my buddy told me directly was, not only is this important for my community that people are helping, but it's important for my son to see men who are willing to drop everything they're doing, drive a couple hours away over tree limbs and over power lines with supplies for complete strangers, because that, as my buddy told me, that's what Jesus would do. That's what we are to do. And And so it was just encouraging to hear the encouraging words from someone on the reciprocating end, or reciprocal on the other side of what was being brought forward from love, care, compassion from the
Yeah.
men and in our communities that were just saying, there's a need, let's fill it.
So whenever, we joke about it a lot, people say it to us for real in a non-joking way. It's like, is this some sort of a cult? And if it is, then we're pretty lucky that this is our cult.
Yeah.
But and you and I have talked about it before too. I know I'm guilty of throwing the word tribe around, and tribe is not a bad word, right?
No.
Words, it's all what's in your heart when you use the word. But tribes tend to operate out of scarcity.
Hmm.
And I think that in that regard, virtuous leadership can be determined as pretty scarce at times.
Mm-hmm.
But since we are a community of dudes trying to be servant leaders to our communities, they operate out of a sense of abundance. And so this is a perfect case in point of that whole narrative of what it looks like to leave a corner, as it were, for the neighbor. And because you never know, as Dredd has said in that video for, I think it was GTE 16, I know it was Naperville.
Okay.
The man that you pick up now will one day become the man that turns around and helps you out, right? And those are literally the words that got me to sign up for 17.
So, again, I'm always amazed at how this stuff just kind of comes together, because we didn't talk about this, but it segued perfectly into, I just got back from GTE 49, or Freedom Ops 01 in Jefferson County, Missouri. I was privileged to be a trainer alongside Urkel and Brick. These guys just really stepped up. I didn't realize how much I needed this. I needed as much, if not more, than the men who are under the log for the event. But it's exactly what you're talking about. We like to say your first GTE is for yourself. Let me prove what I can do. The second one's for your brother next to you. And we talked after this. We had 118 guys step off from the start of the event. And we had 116 or 115 finish. The 3 that dropped were med drops for various injuries. And we had a conversation amongst the trainers. They didn't really tap on my shoulder to say, hey, this guy needs to be talked off the ledge. He's about to quit. It never came up. And so for the duration of the overnight ruck, because for those who don't know, Friday night rally, dinner conversation, Saturday morning boot camp, hour-long boot camp style led by the trainers, and then grow school until noon. That's where we teach leadership principles from the Q source documentation. But throughout the entire grow school, we like to remind the guys, hey, listen, you're going to enter a pain cave. At some point, you're going to want to quit. It happens to all of us. But you can't quit, because the brother next to you needs you. And he's not going to quit on you, so you don't quit on him. And we reiterated that multiple times in addition to all the Q source documentation of virtuous leadership. But we were surprised that no one tapped out, because it was tough. TV, it was tough. Yeah. This event started off with your standard. You got all the sandbags plus all your ruck and all the weight that you're carrying. And we did it down a train track, which I'd always grown up listening. You don't walk on train tracks.
Yeah.
You tend to avoid those, but
we'll glaze right over that detail.
That's right. We were on train tracks, and that was a couple mile hike, and we made our way to a high school football field, and that's where the welcome party, that's where they smoke you. That's where it's tough. Yeah. These guys are barking orders, and this is where you're so confused. What is going on? You start questioning, why am I doing this? And that was followed by the PT test. And TV, you know this as well as I do. The PT test is not easy, but you can train for it. So it's going to be a certain number of ab mat sit-ups, a certain number of hand release Merkins. But the one that tends to bite people the most is you've got to run 2 miles in under 19 minutes. And you could see the guys work through the first round of hand release Merkins, had a couple failures, but not many. Ab mat sit-ups, a couple failures, but not many. And then you saw the look of sheer terror and fear on the faces of, I know I cannot run 2 miles in 19 minutes. And since the guys don't have a watch on, they don't know their pace. They don't know if they're ahead of schedule, behind. And the fear that was on there, I'm not going to be able to do this. And several guys didn't make it. And that happens at every one of these events. You don't make the time hack. And then the cadres have to decide, are you staying or going? If you can't do this, can you continue the duration of the event? Because at this point, it's maybe midnight. There's like 9 more hours to go. And who knows how many more miles. There's probably 10 more miles that are worked into there. But no one quit. And the cadre said, let's let it ride. Let's see how well they do. After we finished up PT, the welcome party, at some point, we heard some kids giggling, and we thought, hey, this is just the local kids, just kind of, it's midnight. Like, what are kids doing, giggling at the top of the stands? And it was someone's kids. Daddy,
Nice.
I'm so proud of you. I love you. And every man on that field, all of a sudden, chest got a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
This, because we all saw it as those could be my kids calling out to me.
Right.
So it was a shot in the arm. So they didn't give up there. Then we walked them down to the Mississippi River. It was not warm, and they were in the river.
Rumor has it.
Yeah, bear crawling through the Mississippi River in the middle of the night, and then the logs. TB, these logs. We know that they weighed a minimum of 650 pounds because the scale tapped out at 650.
Good times.
The white platoon, or what they went by as the ghost platoon, had log A and log alpha and log bravo. Let me tell you something. Log bravo might as well have been a Cadillac DeVille that they were trying to lug. It was enormous. And some of the men that I know personally, strong men, power clean, flight nurse, they were under this thing and could barely get it to their hips. And the grunting, guttural, awful sounds that they made, I was like, man, this ain't going to fly. These guys ain't going to make it. They would go 5 feet, drop it. And this went on for a while, TB. And I thought this is where it taps out. There's no way they're going to finish this. And these jokers kept going. Even when you literally just got off the log and immediately you got to get tapped on the shoulder. I got to get back in. And it wasn't just the 2 logs. They also had buckets, like 80-pound buckets full of stuff, plus the sandbags. Like, there was never a moment when someone didn't have something on their shoulders, including the guy with the flag. He had a sandbag on him because there wasn't enough man to go around for the amount of weight that had to be moved. And I thought for sure these guys were going to tap out. Didn't tap out there. This is the cool part, and I know I'm going in a lot of detail on this, but this stuff it was so cool. We make it through town. We go through a deep tunnel, no idea where we're going. We end up through the tunnel on the other side. There's a bit of a rest, and then we went into a cave. We went to these caves, these underground caves, where the temperature immediately dropped to 50-some degrees. The water was in the 40s, and these guys are. Before we went into the cave, deep into the cave, everybody had to tie a bowling knot to the guy in front of them. So they were told to bring 4 feet of rope. And once you tie those knots, you're really about 3.5 feet. And you're carabiner clipped into the guy in front of you. Now you're bear crawling through, half calf length deep of sand. You're bear crawling. You're doing PT in the water. You're doing flutter kicks, hand release merkins, and knee deep water. And the coolest part, pitch black. Everyone kills their red lamps. You can't see your hand in front of your face. And we sang the national anthem. And I swear to you, TB, it sounded like the Mormon, boys choir. It was just, no one missed a note. It sounded incredible with the acoustics of this deep cave. And a lot of men told me after the fact, that was the moment that they got the shot in the arm, the adrenaline of, we're going to finish strong. What they didn't realize is during their entire cave march, when we came out, it was sunrise. So we literally were coming out of the cave and the sun was peeking through the opening. And then when we hiked up to the sunriser, had a fantastic sunriser, long trick back of up and down. It was probably a 3-mile hike back and elevation change of probably 200 or 300 feet. And of course, you finish with a casualty carry. You finish with all the wives and the kids cheering on their dad. I'm so proud of my dad. And coolest part of the ending, this entire beatdown, this entire Grow Ruck was themed around the Mogadishu Mile. And so that was talking about, that's the story that if you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, that's the story. So throughout the event, there were conversations about the Mogadishu Mile. And at the end, the very last thing before we finished out was going to be a WOD of 19 ground to overhead with your ruck, 19 ruck front squats, 19 ruck push-ups, a 400-meter run, 4 rounds of that. 4 rounds of it. And that was to finish it out. At the very beginning, Major Payne said he quoted the man in the arena, and
Man
he
in the
said,
arena.
"Listen, if anybody on this in this entire event can memorize it, by the end of the Growrook event, there will be a reward." So he handed out to the 4 platoons a laminated sheet of the man in the arena, and at the end, he said, "Who's got it memorized?" And everybody kind of looked around like, dear God, I hope somebody has this thing memorized. And there was a guy named Camelot, and he stepped up. It's not the critic who counts. Not the man. Wait, it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man. And this went on for about 10 seconds of, he may not have it.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
said,
yeah.
well, hang on, we'll give you a minute to look at it. They handed him the sheet. He took the sheet, put it down next to him and said, no. And then this is what he said. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong the man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. He freaking crushed it. And you felt the entire morale of the guys like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to do this final thing. But it was just hugs all around. And it all came down to, at the end of this thing, the guys just didn't want to quit on their brother. They just wanted to keep going, to get it done. And I was overwhelmingly blown away and impressed by the men of the greater St. Louis region. They had 6 or 7 regions represented, as far away as Orlando, Florida, and as far away as the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. So an excellent event. I mean, but
that's a great push. Way to promote.
Dude, it was so solid. They've got another one that's upcoming, our Freedom Ops 002, which is going to be in Memphis. That's upcoming. But dude, it was to start the week off with disaster relief, heading up in the mountains and helping out, plus work. Gosh, you know how it is. A lot of heavy work. And I'm going in as trainer 1 to the event, and I'm not entirely prepared. I haven't gotten all my notes down because of life. And to have Brick and Urkel step in and just made it the burden so light on my shoulders. This was the last couple weeks. I know we haven't recorded lately, but the last couple weeks have been exactly what I needed: a shot in the arm and a little bit of a reminder that with your brothers, anything is possible. And as long as we've got each other, we got all we need. So a lot of word salad, man. I've said a lot, but I'm excited coming off of these events. But that's kind of what's been going on in my world.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And like you said, the whole theme of this whole thing is just not giving up. The beauty of F3 is you get at least 100% of what you put into it back.
Yeah.
And it usually is not exactly how you plan receiving it back, but it always comes back in spades. And the same is true elsewhere. It's exercising that muscle, right? And sometimes you got to tear it down so that it will build back up and be even stronger. Well, listen, my friend, speaking of life, I know you and I are going 1,000 different miles in 1,000 different directions. So I think this is a good place to land the plane. We do have some back-to-back episodes coming up, one of which IJ hinted at is very exciting. We've got a good update on the mental battle coming up with our friend Drop Thrill. I believe that's next week. But I'd say until then, find a way to be an asset. Find a need, fill a need, and don't give up. And until then, be good or be good at it.
Love you, brother. Thanks for listening, fellas. We'll talk to you soon.